Ladies and gentlemen, this is Ballet Ring. We are back, you guys, with another crash course, and today we are going to be talking about ballet's very own pride and joy, and that is, of course, the Grand Pas De Deux.
The Grand Pas De Deux is definitely the pinnacle of any classical ballet, and is also one of the greatest achievements that any dancer can accomplish in their career. So in today's crash course, we're going to be breaking it down for you guys. We're going to take you through the history of the Grand Pas De Deux, breaking down each segment of the Pas De Deux, and of course, most importantly, where to find them and how to enjoy them.
So, if you are ready to get crash coursed, then hit the like button and let's go.
Alright, getting right into it. What is a pas de deux? Pas de deux in its most basic translation means step for two or step of two. And in essence, it's referring to a male and a female dancer performing together.
More specifically, the female dancer will be able to perform steps that she's not normally able to do on her own, because her male partner will be providing her support either by the waist or by the hand, etc. And also is responsible for lifting her and displaying her technique to the fullest advantage.
We talked about this briefly in our ballet styles video, linked above and below if you want to check it out. In the Vaganova method, which is a Russian style of training, Miss Vaganova thought very highly that the Grand Pas De Deux was the pinnacle of any young dancer's education, meaning that everything that a dancer works on during their years of training should culminate in the dancer's ability to master and perform the Grand Pas De Deux. And I think we agree that the Grand Pas De Deux is indeed a very good tangible benchmark, because the Grand Pas De Deux really is a great display of both dancers' artistry and also chemistry, their ability to work together. Not to mention, most Grand Pas De Deux in the classical repertoire are also just technically very challenging, and they require a lot of strength and a lot of endurance.
For this reason, most of the Pas De Deux in the classical ballet repertoire are reserved for the top level dancers only, like soloists or principals. So it's kind of clear to see why most dancers would consider Grand Pas De Deux to be one of the hardest things to master and one of the biggest achievements. Once you've done a Grand Pas De Deux, you feel like you've climbed Everest. You know, it's like one of those kinds of achievements that you always dream of when you're a student.
The history of the Pas De Deux is actually pretty interesting, because the original Pas De Deux were not at all like the Pas De Deux we see on the stages today. Nowadays, as we kind of mentioned before, it's most often associated with a male and a female dancer dancing together with all those, you know, fancy stunts and fancy turns and lifts and tricks and things like that. But back when Pas De Deux first emerged in the early 18th century, the male and female dancer would most often dance side by side, performing identical steps and occasionally holding hands.
Wow.
So like it was so much more distanced, and it was less involved.
Less
with
like
each other.
physically like touching.
Yeah, exactly. So it's just interesting to kind of look back and like see how far, you know, Pas De Deux has really come.
As we fast forward into the late 18th century and early 19th century, we start to see sort of that Pas De Deux vocabulary coming into play. Promenades and supported arabesque and attitude. Those sort of steps started coming into play. Obviously, there are no incredible lifts and tricks yet.
Yeah, no spring waters yet.
No spring waters yet, but we are starting to see that Pas De Deux vocabulary, as in the ballerina doing certain steps and the danseur supporting her and presenting her to the audience.
And in the 19th century, Pas de Pas enters the scene, as he does with literally all of our history videos.
It's always Pas de Pas,
It's always Pas de Pas. And Pas de Pas had a huge hand in advancing the Grand Pas De Deux. He was the one who codified the sort of template for the Grand Pas De Deux, and we'll get into all these segments in a bit, but with the entrance, the Adage, the variation in the Coda, he was the one who kind of like built that framework. And you can see that this pattern kind of runs across all of the classics, Swan Lake, Sleeping Beauty, like all those big ballets, they follow the same Pas De Deux template. All because of Pas de Pas, our wonderful man, Pas de Pas.
And of course, if Pas de Pas does something, it becomes a thing in the ballet world.
Yeah.
So since then, that has been the generally most widely accepted template for the Grand Pas De Deux. So why do we have Pas De Deux in a ballet? What is the purpose? Is there a purpose to having a Grand Pas De Deux in the middle of a ballet.
The Grand Pas De Deux can serve multiple purposes. Firstly, it can definitely serve as a vessel to carry and usher the plot along. Like if you look at the White Swan Pas De Deux, like that one is their real-time interactions of figuring out their relationship, building that trust and that bond, getting to know each other and really committing to each other fully. And that Pas De Deux is really what knits the two halves of the white act together, in my opinion. And for others, a Pas De Deux mostly serves as sort of a divertissement, so like an entertainment piece within the scope of the ballet. In these cases, it also kind of gives you more of a picture of their dynamic and kind of provides some of that world building sort of character development elements, but not in like a huge way per se.
In any case, a Grand Pas De Deux is always meant to be an opportunity to display the lead soloist or principal dancer's skills as well-rounded dancers and performers, and also to give the audience a fantastic viewing experience.
Exactly.
I mean, obviously, yeah, it is a ballet.
It's a ballet.
We're here to see dancing.
Yes.
So the Grand Pas De Deux gives you dancing.
Now we're going to be talking about the different elements of a Grand Pas De Deux. I guess we should start by saying that there is a difference between a Pas De Deux and a Grand Pas De Deux. Pas De Deux in its basic essence can refer to any time that a male and female dancer are dancing together, but a Grand Pas De Deux is referring to the specific pattern codified by Pas de Pas. Every ballet has a Pas De Deux, not all of them have a Grand Pas De Deux. Now, the different elements of the Grand Pas De Deux, we have the entrance, or the entrée, and then we have the adage, which is the main portion of the Pas De Deux, and then we have the male variation, the female variation, and then at last we have the Coda.
So we're gonna break it down for y'all,
yes,
section by section, let you know what to look for and what the purpose is of each segment.
So starting with the entrance, or the entrée.
The entrée usually starts off pretty upbeat.
Yeah.
Like think pas de sclave, satinella, peasant pas de deux.
Yes.
It is exactly as the name suggests, an entrance. So it's showing off, introducing our characters or introducing our dancers, giving us a little picture of what their dynamic looks like, and it's overall just a ta-da, welcome to the show, we're here.
Oftentimes it does have that very celebratory, sort of triumphant feel to it. It's just like a great, strong opener to the amazing dancing that's coming up. The entrances are usually quite short.
Usually they'll have, a few nice big partner jumps, some big entrance steps to kind of set the tone for the rest of the Pas De Deux.
I think the best way to appreciate the entrance is to really just feed off of that energy. Like that's sort of your appetizer going into the Grand Pas De Deux. So soak it all up, enjoy the music.
This is your chance to really get acquainted with the dancers. So watch their connection with each other, watch their connection with the audience. They're going to be looking at the audience a lot. Generally, they're going to be looking at the audience
most often,
a lot. And this is your chance to get acquainted with their style of dancing and their interactions with the other dancer. We've had our excitement, we're hyped. Now is coming one of the best, most iconic parts of any Pas De Deux.
And that is, of course, the adage, or the adagio portion of the Grand Pas De Deux. The adage is most often the longest portion of the Pas De Deux,
being like 3 to even 6 minutes long.
They can definitely vary in length. And there's also a lot of variety in how the adages can appear and sort of the vibe they give off. You can reference like the Sleeping Beauty wedding Pas De Deux versus Don Quixote. It's a very, very different vibe. But regardless of the tempo and the sort of feeling they give off, they all highlight the same sort of steps. Lots of extensions and getting your legs up, lots of turns, big fancy lifts. It's usually the slow section of the Pas De Deux, unless you're Flames of Paris.
I will say though that the adagio section of the Pas De Deux, it's usually the most iconic.
Oh, definitely.
It's also where the most beautiful music can be found. Pretty much every single Grand Pas De Deux, the adagio section, it's gonna be
angelic.
It's gonna be ethereal, exquisite, beautiful. Naturally, that slow tempo choreography is gonna be wonderful. It's truly the most iconic part of the ballet. The main point of the adagio section is to show off the relationship of the male and the female dancer together. So you get to see both of their own artistry, their skill, their beauty, all together in one. So it's so special.
The best way to appreciate the adage portion of a Pas De Deux is to lean into the emotions, I think, of the Pas De Deux. This is oftentimes a world-building experience in terms of the story or the plot or the relationship of the couple. This is also sort of like that romantic part of the ballet, you might say. That's the part part that's like the most beautiful and the sweetest part of the pas de deux.
And also remember that this is such an individual thing. I feel like every single partnership can do the same pas de deux as anybody else, but they all have their own unique flavor to it. For Coda ballet work, it's all gotta be the same.
Yeah, for sure.
But when it's a pas de deux, it's just the danseur and the ballerina. There's a lot of room for different interpretations, and that can come out most prominently in the Adagio section. I think when watching an Adagio, really appreciate the danseur and the ballerina's unique interpretation of the pas de deux, because everyone's gonna have a slightly different spin on it, and they're all gonna have something different that they bring to the table.
After the Adagio is finished, we have a rest. We can take some bows. The audience will be clapping. And then at this point, the ballerina will most often exit the scene and the danseur will remain, turn the corner, and prepare for his variation.
Variation, in case you don't know, basically means their solo.
Yes. The male variation usually consists of a lot of grand allegro or big jumps and a lot of turns. Naturally, of course, because these two skills are the specialty of the danseur, and so that's what we like to highlight in a male variation.
The male variations are usually very short,
yes,
but very, very intense. Usually only like 40 seconds to a minute long of just pure jumping, pure turning, and all of the most difficult skills that the danseur can provide.
It's like that when you are doing Mario Kart and you have the star power.
Oh yeah,
it's like for like 30 seconds. That's what it reminds me of.
Yep.
40 seconds of star power. The male variation is meant to showcase sort of that masculine power, if you would, of the danseur, and obviously with the height of the ballon and the amount of turns and that strong and powerful music all contributes to support this factor. So as an audience member, of course, it is perfectly okay to just be spellbound.
Absolutely.
To be absolutely spellbound and appreciate the work that the danseur has put in, and to just admire the unique skills and sort of the unique traits of the danseur.
The variation is an opportunity for him to say, you know, look, this is what I can do as a solo dancer.
Exactly. So now after the danseur takes his bows after his variation and exits the stage, it is now time for the ballerina to take the spotlight.
I would dare to say that the female variations have a lot more variety in style rather than the male variations.
They're much more diverse depending on the context of the role and the ballet.
Yep.
Like if you look at White Swan versus Kitri, like they're
absolutely
both
different.
Female variation, but they're very, very, very different.
The female variations, they're gonna vary a lot in tempo, vary a lot in music, and also
different steps
and different
skill
steps and skills,
yeah,
and also in length. Some of them can be as short as 40 seconds, and some of them can be as long as 3 minutes.
Raymonda, we're looking at you.
Looking at you, Raymonda. The female variation, similarly to the male variation, it's to show off the female dancer as a solo dancer.
Yeah.
To show what she can do all on her own without a partner.
Mm-hmm. I will note that it is very interesting to see how both the male and female dancers perform separately, because in the entrance and in the Adagio, we've mostly seen them dancing together. And that dynamic is very, very different character-wise when they have the spotlight also themselves versus when they're sharing the spotlight together.
Yeah, and I think female variations, like we said, are very, very diverse because some variations are going to cater to different skill sets. So you'll have your turning variations, like think Medora,
Kitri Act 1.
Kitri Act 1, oh, Cavalry Halt as well. And then you'll have your point work variations like Talisman or Flames of Paris, you know, lots of little point work stuff. And then you'll have your Adagio variations like Raymonda or Paquita, the really slow one, White Swan. And your jumping variations like Laurencia and Gamzati. So there are lots of different variations that have a completely different skill set. As a female dancer, your goal is to be so well-rounded in all of those different skill sets that no matter what pas de deux you're doing, you'll have an apt technique to support all those different variations.
Exactly. I think the special thing about the female variation, because it is usually following the male variations, you get to appreciate that contrast between his variation and her variation, his character and her character. You can really see those unique traits come out a lot more because we just got to appreciate his work and his stunts, and then we get to see hers on her own. And that's always really fun to see.
And also I'll say, like, as a dancer, regarding both male and female variations, I feel like the variations are so iconic.
Oh yeah.
Variations are very, very iconic in the ballet scheme. And so to do a variation that has such a history, you know, that so many amazing, incredible dancers have danced before you.
Yeah.
Like as a dancer, I'll say it's a very special experience.
It really
you know? And for audiences as well, to watch something that you know, it's one of the most beloved, fan favorite parts.
So savor it, soak it all up.
It's a different kind of experience, and it's really special. we are just about wrapping up the pas de deux. We have been acquainted with the dancers in the entrance, admired their pas de deux skills in the Adagio. We've admired their solo skills in the variations, and now we are coming up to the Coda, which is the big grand finale, and the opportunity for both dancers to showcase the virtuoso side of their dancing before we say goodbye.
The Coda is a big flex section of the entire pas de deux. It is the time to show up all of their tricks and all of their impressive steps to really wow the audience before we close it off. For the ballerina, some of the most popular tricks for codas is the piqué turn manège, which is a bunch of turns traveling in a circle around the stage. And of course, the beloved fouette turn, oftentimes a sequence of 32, sometimes with singles, doubles, triples, depending on the dancer, as seen in the Black Swan pas de deux, Don Quixote, Le Corsaire, etc. Those are two of the most popular trick steps for the ballerina in terms of codas. Now for the danseur, it's a little bit different but similar. The danseur will likewise do a manège, most often with coupé jetés or a combination like that. And instead of the fouette, he'll do his out of the come turns, which are equally impressive, and it's pretty cool because oftentimes the music will speed up a little bit. Yes. He's just going like a top over there.
It's sort of that one-upping each other and like egging each other on to go faster, do more stuff.
Yeah.
And it builds the energy so quickly, and it makes the coda so special and so much fun. Also, the music is usually like the best bop music you will ever find.
The best bop music of all time.
Codas rock. After they've done both of their individual trick steps, the danseur and the ballerina will come together a final time. We'll have a couple more big lifts and pas de deux tricks, and then finally the pas de deux is done. And of course, there is always a huge amount of applause after this, and both dancers feel an immense sense of satisfaction and gratitude for themselves and for each other after accomplishing such an incredible feat. And so, of course, they're supposed to take a well-deserved reverence to the audience and also to each other, and thank each other for the amount of dedication, hard work, and collaboration required to make the pas de deux happen.
To appreciate the coda, it's just feeding off of that energy. And yes, during the coda, it is acceptable to sort of reciprocate that energy back towards the dancers.
Yes.
If you want to clap after they've done a specific trick, all of that is perfectly acceptable. And for the dancers, of course, it does hype us up quite a bit. But also for an audience member, it really helps you to feel that much more connected with the dancers and with the piece and the music and the whole atmosphere in general. So don't be afraid to kind of let loose a little bit. Feel that excitement, and don't be afraid to really enjoy yourself in the closing portion of the pas de deux. Now, of course, now that you are sufficiently convinced that the Grand Pas De Deux is something that every single person must experience at least one time, naturally you're asking the question, where do I find such a Grand Pas De Deux?
There is a Grand Pas De Deux in pretty much every classical full-length ballet out there.
Keyword being full-length.
Full-length. Some of them even have two, like Sleeping Beauty has two. They have the Wedding Pas De Deux
and the Bluebird
Pas De Deux. Le Corsaire as well. They have the Pas d'Esclave and then the actual Grand Pas De Deux.
Exactly. So you might get lucky.
So you might get lucky. You might get to watch two Grand Pas De Deux in one ballet.
For a lot of ballets, they'll have one Grand Pas De Deux, but multiple just Pas De Deux.
Regular Pas De Deux.
Regular Pas De Deux sprinkled within the ballet.
Such as the Act 1 Snow Pas De Deux from the Nutcracker, as well as the Act 1 Pas De Deux from the Bayadere, and others like that.
Now, if you go to a ballet that's not a full-length ballet, then yes, they will have a pas de deux, but more often than not, they will not have a grand pas de deux. Like if you look at the Firebird or the Dream, they'll have a main pas de deux, but it just won't follow the pet-a-pot template. But they are still equally fabulous and wonderful.
Just because it's not a grand pas de deux does not mean like, oh, it's not special. It is still very, very special.
Still extremely special. Yeah. There are also what we call standalone pas de deux that exist in the ballet world. The Tchaikovsky pas de deux from George Balanchine is one of them, and same thing with Grand Pas Classique.
And Flower Fest!
And these pas de deux aren't part of a full-length ballet of any sort, although Flower Festival used to be, but it's just the rest of it's lost history. These pieces aren't really part of any other ballet. They're just stand by themselves in all their glory and their majesty.
Some of our favorite Grand Pas De Deux. Which one's one of your favorites?
Oh my gosh. For me, definitely Le Corsaire. The music just sends your soul to heaven for a couple minutes. It makes you feel so happy. And the steps themselves are exquisite, immaculate. I absolutely absolutely love the Le Corsair Pas De Deux.
The Sleeping Beauty Wedding Pas De Deux.
Okay, yeah.
It's so
that
good.
That one is exquisite. The way the music builds.
Yeah.
And it's just all the imperialness.
Yeah, when you get to like the break, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Like the not the beat drop, but like
the beat drop, like kind of.
Oh, it's not the beat drop, but it kind of is.
It is the beat drop.
Oh, it's
like
Black Swan is always the good one.
Oh my gosh, Black Swan is iconic. I think it's probably the most popular,
Pas De Deux,
beloved Pas De Deux of all time. Black Swan.
There's so many other ones. Like Don Q is amazing.
Paquita is also wonderful.
Oh, Paquita's good too.
Paquita's fun because there's also a lot of variations that like the bridesmaid perform.
And the corps de ballet gets really involved throughout the entire Pas De Deux, like throughout the Adagio and also the Coda.
Yeah.
The corps de ballet is in there as well.
Yeah, they really frame the Pas De Deux really, really nicely. So yeah, these are just a few of the must-watch Pas De Deux off the top of our head. But of course, if you want to hear our opinion on a bunch more classical Pas De Deux, go check out the video where we ranked some of the most popular Pas De Deux on a tier list. The link will be above and below.
But yeah, go find yourself a Pas De Deux.
You won't regret it.
You will
It'll be
not
a life-changing experience.
10 out of 10, highly recommend. So, there you have it, everybody. That was our Pas De Deux crash course. Hopefully, you are sufficiently crash coursed.
I think they are. Hopefully now you understand a little bit more about the classical Grand Pas De Deux, why it's so special, why we love it so much, and how you can appreciate it too.
If this crash course has inspired you to watch some Pas De Deux for yourself, then we've actually done a lot of commentaries on famous Pas De Deux. We've done Black Swan, I think we've even done Flower Fest. We've even done a couple like not Grand Pas De Deux, like The Dream. So if you are interested in checking that out, then the playlist will be linked above and below and we can watch the Pas De Deux together.
If you like the video, then like the video. And if you want to help support the channel and the future of ballet nerding content, feel free to check out the merch shop linked above and below where you can get your own fabulous ballet nerding merch. A big thank you from us and the Ballet Rain team to everyone who has supported and everyone who will support in the future. Anyway, I think that is all from us for now. This is Ballet Rain signing off. Until the next video. Bye. Let's do it. You know what I'm craving? What are you craving?
Watermelon. With salt. I don't know if have y'all heard of this? Many different cultures do it, but you have to put your salt on the watermelon.
Yeah, just like a little sprinkle.
And like you get your electrolytes in, and also the salt brings out like the sweetness. Yeah, in a
Yes.
different kind of way. It's actually really good. Like
It's surprisingly good. It sounds disgusting if you've never tried it, but I mean, give it a shot.
You should actually try it. It's really good. Let us know if you try it. Comment down below. Tell us if you like it.